What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Gabriel Speaks podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This is going to be an interesting one about Jeffrey Epstein. Man, I hate this guy. I'm so sick of this son of a bitch, and he's dead. So some new emails came out. The Democrats are being blamed for the emails coming out for the leak because apparently it was a leak. It wasn't included in all the previous documents that have already come out, which, according to the Department of Justice website, is a total of 33,000 pages from the Oversight Committee. So we're going to walk through tonight some of the key names. We're going to look at the timeline. We're going to look at some of the exchanges in the new Epstein emails, what they kind of allude to, what they mean, because without any context, it's kind of hard to understand what importance they have. So we'll look at some depositions. And of course, the comment section, as always, is open. If you have questions, insight, useful, links, anything you want to share you think would help in our investigation of these two pieces of crap, of course, drop it in the comment section. So to get to what actually happened and what you're seeing in these headlines that oftentimes are clickbait, so I completely get it if you just tuned out. But essentially, Epstein, he was already a convicted sex offender. These emails show how he talked about some pretty powerful people and trying to minimize the damage to his reputation, essentially. Ghislaine Maxwell, in the emails kind of appears to be like a confidant, and we know they were like in love or had some kind of weird relationship or something like that. But they seem to indicate that Trump actually was involved with these two individuals, as it were. So the Epstein emails, he notes that, and we're going to take a look at them, but essentially he notes that one of the victims spent hours with Trump, but they black out the name. And it's weird because we come to find out the name is Virginia Giuffre, who has already come out and said all these things. So it's kind of strange that that's even like a thing. But basically, there's an instance where Epstein calls Trump borderline insane. And in some email exchanges, it appears he was actually tracking Trump. Like, how weird is that? There was some information on Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew. As we know, he's been, I don't know what they call that, demoted, deposed, whatever. I don't live in a monarchy, so I'm not privy to all that terminology. But basically, yeah, from what I understand, he's not like the acting prince or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, we do want to be fair, so it is important to note that Virginia Giuffre never actually said, hey, Trump did anything wrong to me. Her whole thing was with former Prince Andrew, who was taking advantage of her when she was a child. Now, in response to this, of course, as we would expect from Trump and the Trump White House, it's been complete pushback. There's just no way. He hasn't been involved with any of this, so on and so forth. So I have a couple of short videos I'm going to play for you. These are just some things I have compiled over like the last 12 months to 24 months as this case has been developing, things I thought were important to make note of. One thing I also want to say before we get going, this is a little personal to me, y'all. In fact, very recently, I just had to sit through a sentencing hearing for a piece of garbage that did something awful to my daughter. And I'm sure you can take it from there. I don't need to get into much detail, but tore a hole in this family that we've been replacing and filling ever since. And this is very real, y'all. Like, this really impacts people. Lives are really destroyed. It's amazing, when you do that to a young person, the impact that will have on their entire life is astronomical. And I will say that the sentencing that the person received was almost unbelievable. But this is the world that we live in. So at any rate, when I cover this story, and the reason I've been thumping the Epstein story is so long is not because I have a political agenda. It's not because I care one way or another who wins the White House or the Senate seats or whatever. What I care about is these scumbags in these powerful positions thinking it gives them license to do whatever the fuck they want to do, including raping little girls. I don't care what your excuse is. There's no excuse. And to use your power and leverage to cover that up, it's absolutely disgusting. And we have to call it out when we see it, right? We can't be selective about it because it's very clear there's scumbags on all sides. I think the differentiation is not so much your political affiliation, but more how much money you have in the bank account and how much you can get away with. And really how sick and twisted you are to want to manipulate children. Completely out of control. Okay, so let's take a look at email number 1 here. It might be better. We have the actual timeline here from the House Oversight Committee. And it might be better if we take a look at this. This provides a real clean kind of breakdown of it. Okay. So we've got the information on the emails. All right. The 3 emails from the production. Email 1 is direct correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And it says, high priority. I have been thinking about that. That was a response. The original email was, I want you to realize that that dog hasn't barked. That the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, and that we are told is Virginia Giuffre, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Please, chief, etc., and 75% there. I don't know. Is that code? Anybody have any idea what the fuck that means? In fact, we can probably get a better version here. Here we go. Okay, so I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Virginia Giuffre spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Okay. So he's obviously part of an ongoing conversation. Very careful about what they're saying, what they're not saying. It's almost like a mob type conversation, right? You have to be kind of on the inside to know what the hell they're actually talking about. So that's the first email that we are subjected to. And right off the bat, they're talking about, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. So they're talking about having some type of pull over Trump and that there's 75% there. So this goes back to the theory that Maxwell might have been some kind of Mossad agent where he was collecting information, damaging information, damning information on politicians and other powerful people to use as leverage against them later when needed. And we can't put it past Israel to do something like that, right? We're the most powerful nation in the world. We always have their back. But there may be instances where they want more than we want to give. Or there may be instances where we disagree. And boy, having a video of a president in a compromising position with a young person would be a very solid piece of leverage to use against that person. So here is the second email. Now, this is a direct correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. So from Jeffrey Epstein, he says, well, it's blacked out victim, but we know that is, if we're to believe what we're told, Virginia Giuffre, Mar-a-Lago identifier. Trump said he asked me to resign over a member ever. Oh, never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Okay. And then email 3 is direct correspondence between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. And this is the one where there's some interesting stuff in here. So this is to Epstein from Michael Wolff. I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. Now, in response, Jeffrey Epstein says, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? Michael Wolff responds, I think you should let him hang himself. Now they're talking about Trump, of course. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or, if it really looks like he could win, you could save him. generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Now, excuse me. That is interesting. Anybody know who Michael Wolff is? Any idea? From what I understand, he's a journalist. And according to the New York Post and this email here and several other news outlets, he was urging on Jeffrey Epstein to potentially blackmail President Trump. Why is a reporter helping Jeffrey Epstein gain control over Trump? That's super weird, right? Yes, Gabe, it is. It's super fucking weird. All right, let's take a look at a couple of snippets put together since this story kind of broke. And then we're going to get into some of the news coverage, some of the original stuff, and then some of the new stuff. And again, any questions, any comments, just throw them in the box. We got it up on the screen here. So this was, well, I'm just going to let you watch it.
That night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, let's dance together, and I was like, okay, and we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey, and Ghislaine said he's coming back to the house. And I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein.
Do for him what you do for Epstein. And at that time, she was 17. She's 17 years old. These guys are what, like their mid-40s? It's disgusting. It's a child.
Epstein has a certain reputation.
Now this is interesting because this is President Trump's response to reports that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were taking women from his massage parlor and involving them in this shit.
Obviously, just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women?
Some of them.
Were some of them young women?
Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were. Yeah. In the spa.
Spa.
Yeah, people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Monologue. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told them, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again, and I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Jeffrey?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her. And by the way, she had no complaints about us, as you know. So,
She had no complaints about us. We're perfect. It's so incredible. You would think there would be a lot more empathy for these victims, and there's just like none. It's so weird. Okay, now this was it was almost like the second the government shutdown ended, we were right back into the Epstein thing, which definitely is an indicator that Democrats are pushing this, right? They just want to keep pushing negative shit out there. I guess that's the name of the game. And I'm okay with that, because honestly, until we get real answers on this Epstein thing, good. Keep harassing them. Keep making it a pain in the ass. Keep making it a thorn in the side, because I think it's clear he was involved at some capacity. I'm not making any claims about what the man did or did not do, but he clearly had a relationship with the man. He spent time with him on multiple occasions. From what I understand, he has been out to the island. He has been on the flight log. And you just read an email right there about Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff considering using it as leverage. Leverage for what? I don't know. And that makes you wonder, is it leverage so Epstein can get out of trouble for being a pedo later? Or is it leverage to try to get President Trump to make some kind of executive decision that he wouldn't typically make? I think either way, it's not great. It's not a good thing. All right. So this is CNN covering the story as CNN does. So don't worry. We will look at both sides. We will look at the CNN coverage, and we'll also look at the Fox coverage. And then we're going to get into a little bit of the Maxwell testimony and how the fuck did she end up in a prison where she's getting to visit a puppy dog? How's that happen? A woman that's responsible for the rape of multiple young children is in a minimum security prison hanging out with puppy dogs and getting all kinds of perks. It's absolutely disgusting. Just absolutely disgusting. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get this started. Again, this was maybe 15 hours ago. Just as the story broke, the bill got signed and we were right into the Epstein thing.
On that battle, new fallout is looming over the White House from the newly released trove of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Among the files, multiple emails from Epstein that specifically mention Donald Trump's name. The White House is now ramping up pressure on House Republicans after 4 of them, including 3 women, signed a discharge petition to force a vote on fully releasing the Justice Department's files on Epstein. That vote now set to happen next week. One of Epstein's survivors telling CNN she's grateful to that handful of Republicans and urged them to stand firm.
I think that there's just such a broader message that for those women, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, and Mace, I think they are really standing up for women everywhere, and they are saying, they're throwing down the gauntlet of what is acceptable in society.
And new this morning, new CNN exclusive reporting on Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate and now convicted sex trafficker, and her life behind bars. Sources telling CNN she now gets special privileges, including private use of the chaplain's office for visitors, the warden personally helping her send emails, and yes, even unlimited toilet paper. CNN's Elena Treen is at the White House with the very latest on this morning. What are you learning?
Yeah, look, Sarah, yesterday was a dizzying day of political intrigue, and it really cast a dark cloud over Republican hopes of claiming victory over the government shutdown and passing that bill to reopen the government. Now, the president, of course, signed that bill last night, but it finished off a day that brought new urgency to this issue that he has tried repeatedly, as well as his team, to try and shrug off, but he just can't shake it. It's an issue that keeps coming back and bringing new information every time it does. And of course, there was those new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's private estate over the last 15 years that mentioned the president by name. And ever since then, ever since those were released, the White House has really been in damage control mode. And my colleagues and I broke yesterday that part of that was to bring Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, one of the people who ultimately did join that petition, bringing her to the White House, and not just coming to the White House, but bringing her to the Situation Room, the room where presidents go over war plans, to try and urge her not to sign her name. Now, the White House has argued that that was a sign of transparency. Listen to how Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, put it.
Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency, having discussions with members of Congress about various issues. And I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room, in the press briefing room.
Now, look, despite that meeting and also the president's efforts to try and get the Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace on the phone as well, it was an unsuccessful effort. Both of them, including and then in addition to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, all ultimately signed it. Now this signature has 218 votes, and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, said that they will get a vote on that next week. And to be clear, I want to be clear in all of this, that these new emails do not appear to pose any new legal implications for the president. The White House and the president have repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, and the president has not been charged with any crimes as it relates to Epstein. But all of this just continues to bring new urgency to that question of why isn't the president releasing these, particularly after he and his supporters for years had argued that the files must be made public. And really, why isn't he willing to release these and get justice for these victims who have been trafficked and abused by Epstein? And so the question continues is going to be, how does this White House continue to deal with this, particularly as we know that this vote is going to happen next week to try and force the Justice Department to release the materials they have. And one of the questions I know that has really been something that I think this White House is struggling with, Sarah, is that, most seriously, it raises the question of, did the president know more than what he has said publicly? All of that they're dealing with today.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that people want answered. Elena Treen, thank you so much for your reporting. John?
All right, let's get right to CNN political analyst, Washington Bureau Chief for the Boston Globe, Jackie Kucinich. Jackie, what does it tell you that the White House and the president seem to be working so hard to keep more information from coming out?
I mean, the assertion that it's transparent to say that Boebert was there when they're trying to get her to take her name off of something that would reveal more documents when it comes to the Epstein case, I think tells you everything you need to know. But what we don't know, as Elena pointed out there, is why they're trying to keep the rest of these files a secret. It's hard to believe this actually started in February when Attorney General Pam Bondi distributed that binder to conservative influencers that turned out to be a lot of things that were already released and were heavily redacted. And this has just been a self-inflicted wound over and over and over again. And now here we are in November, still talking about something that the president promised during his last campaign, but also that started to unspool at the very beginning of his second term.
And one other thing on this, Jackie, as you well know, I mean, what happens if and when the House does vote next week to release more of the files? Does that mean automatically they become public the next day?
No, it doesn't. It means they go to the Senate, and the president has to actually sign this at the end of the day. And it's hard to believe that this House, in particular, and this Congress, would have the necessary votes to override a presidential veto. So all of perhaps this is so they don't have, House Republicans don't have to be on the record voting to release these files. It's an excellent question, but the vote is going to happen. I mean, that is going to happen, as Mike Johnson said, potentially next week. But yes, then for all intents and purposes, it kind of ends there unless, a lot of factors change.
Again, some of the big questions are why the insistence on not releasing more and how hard they're working. A situation remeeting. Very, very unusual. Jackie Kucinich, great to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Joining us now is CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. All right, I want to talk about this one email that you and a lot of us looked at. It seems like the most significant one. It's from 2011, where Epstein is writing to Ghislaine Maxwell saying, and here's what he says: "I want you to realize that dog that hasn't barked is Trump." The victim's name there is redacted, but he says, she spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. What stands out to you about what are the things that this particular email tells you?
So lots of questions raised by these emails, not a lot of answers, but really important questions. The two fundamental questions I think that are raised is what exactly was the nature of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein back then? And what exactly did Donald Trump know about Jeffrey Epstein's criminality back then? Now, this email I think is the most important one. Let's start with the simplest part. Name a victim, spent hours at my house with him, with Trump. Okay. That is contradictory to much of what we've heard from, for example, Ghislaine Maxwell, who denied Donald Trump was ever at the house. That, for hours, by the way, at the house. So what is Donald Trump doing at the house? Was he in fact there? What is he doing there for hours? What is he doing with the victim for hours? I think those are really important questions. The second part of this email is the whole dog that hasn't barked part of it. Now, that actually goes back to a Sherlock Holmes story about a robbery where a guard dog doesn't bark, and the inference is, well, the dog must have known the robbers. And this sounds like they're speculating about, is Donald Trump speaking to the police? Is he providing information because his name hasn't been mentioned, and nor has he said anything publicly? So it's important to think about the timing, Sarah, as you said. This is 2011. This is after Jeffrey Epstein has pled guilty in Florida to his sweetheart deal, before Donald Trump's running for president, of course, but he's in the public eye. So I think this raises important questions about the relationship between Trump and Epstein and what Trump knew back then.
Is there any sense here? I mean, this is happening at a time when, you mentioned all those things, that there was, why would they lie, I guess, when you're looking at this?
Yeah, on the one hand, you have two convicted criminals communicating here, in Epstein and Maxwell, two people with no credibility. On the other hand, they're communicating with each other back in 2011, what they believe is private, through email. And so it does have the hallmark of credibility. I'll just say this. If this was a trial of some other co-conspirator, this type of email would be admissible in court, because the theory is when you have two co-conspirators communicating like this, they wouldn't have a reason to lie to each other.
The president is facing no legal ramifications from any of this. But the president is responding to all this. He's called it a hoax. He went on Truth Social and went after Republicans. He called a meeting some of his cabinet members. I mean, what do his actions and words tell you? They don't seem to match.
Well, some of the things in these emails actually corroborate and support things that Donald Trump has said in his own defense over the years. But yes, the whole "there's nothing to see here" approach is very much inconsistent with the idea of now let's have a situation room meeting with White House officials, the AG, the deputy AG, and the FBI director. So the messaging here is quite contradictory, and the whole, we're calm about this is belied, I think, by the actual actions we've been seeing.
Yeah, I would say so. The thing is like, even if you're in control of the Justice Department and are the president of the United States, you can only kick the can and try to avoid the investigation and slow down the investigation for so long before something's got to give, I would think. Now, that was the CNN take. Here is the Fox News take. As I said, I try to get both sides, and then because usually what's actually going on is found somewhere in the middle there. So let's listen to what Fox has to say about essentially the same predicament.
The president and his team are questioning the timing of the new Epstein emails that were released earlier today by Democrats. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has that part of the story for us tonight. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, John. Officials here are claiming that if congressional Democrats really cared about advocating for Jeffrey Epstein's victims, then we would have heard a lot more from congressional Democrats about Jeffrey Epstein during the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. And instead, we are seeing these big leaks like the one today, selectively, according to the White House, that claims that Donald Trump knew in 2011 about Epstein's crimes.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
The president himself muses the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap.
When Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump.
White House officials would much rather talk about their hope that the House will soon vote to reopen the government.
There are no coincidences in Washington, D.C., and it is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Coming out of the shutdown, President Trump's approval on the economy in an AP poll is 33%. But the Treasury Secretary urges Americans worried about affordability to be patient.
There is the inflation line. We've got that under control. It's leveled out. That is going to start turning down. Then there's the income line. I would expect in the first quarter, second quarter of next year, those two lines are going to cross, and the American people are going to start feeling better.
The new AP poll finds the president with a 34% approval on health care, the very issue the Democrats held on to at the start of the shutdown. But negotiations about next steps for Obamacare subsidies haven't yet been scheduled.
You can't trust the same people who broke the system to fix it, and so the American people will continue to hear from the president on this issue.
Tonight, President Trump is going to host a late dinner with some Wall Street bigwigs, including the CEOs of J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley and BlackRock, as officials here try to steer the national conversation back towards the economy. John.
Wouldn't that be a good thing? Get off the shutdown and back to things that people really care about. Peter Doocy for us at the White House. Peter, thank you.
Yeah, nobody cares about the Epstein case, right, folks?
That they should be allowed to withhold food stamp funding that Congress lawfully approved. They were ordered by 3 separate courts to distribute food assistance and are still fighting to withhold it.
The debate starting on the House floor over the continuing resolution to reopen the government. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro making some points there about SNAP benefits. Let's bring in our panel for more on all of this. Fox News contributor Molly Hemingway, Democratic strategist Megan Hayes, and Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen. So as we head toward what is expected to be a positive vote on reopening the government, and we look forward to that, we're left to wonder where the Democratic Party sits right now. Here's what Political Playbook said. The fault lines facing both parties. Tales of Democratic disarray are hardly new, of course, but have amped up dramatically since Sunday night's Senate cave-in. And it's rough out there. We're seeing new levels of vitriol from the party's already fractious progressive base towards its moderately minded establishment. Importantly, that same anger is being voiced by ambitious centrist Democrats eager to jump aboard the populist train. You've got a divide that's becoming a chasm here, Megan.
I just see this a little bit differently. The Democrats in the Senate didn't have any leverage if they waited till the end of the year. Their only leverage was health care, so they needed to get a vote for health care, and that's what they got. They also got RIFT employees to be reestablished into the government. They got back pay for them, and they also got this vote on health care.
Okay, so they're getting more into the politics of it there. Okay, so this is a little more recent coverage on ABC News, and let's take a look at what they have to say about it.
Now to the fallout from the congressional release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein, including emails in which the convicted sex offender mentions Donald Trump. Pressure is growing this morning for more of the Epstein files to be released by the Justice Department. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is tracking the latest. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. And these messages are sparking fresh questions about President Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The White House denies any wrongdoing by the president, but the administration still refuses to release the full FBI files on Epstein. And now this morning on Capitol Hill, an effort to force their release is finally moving forward. This morning, as the White House downplays newly released emails from convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly discussing President Trump, an effort on Capitol Hill to force a vote on the release of the full Epstein files, garnering its final signature. Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva sworn in after a 7-week delay, signing on to the petition to force a vote on the file's release as her first act in Congress.
I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files.
The White House is well aware that a vote would put Republicans in an uncomfortable position. Many of the president's supporters have previously called for their release. In an attempt to stop the petition, top White House and Justice Department officials, including the Attorney General and FBI Director, attempting to pressure Congresswoman Lauren Boebert into removing her name from it, meeting with her Wednesday in the Situation Room. But it didn't work. Boebert, ultimately one of 4 Republicans who signed on in support. We pressed the White House.
Trump.
But given your
Reagan.
interest in transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please?
It comes just hours after House Democrats released those emails obtained from the Epstein estate, showing the convicted sex offender discussing Trump and seeming to suggest he had information he never shared. In a 2011 exchange with his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein writing the, quote, dog that hasn't barked is Trump, adding one of his victims spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home, but that Trump had never once been mentioned. Maxwell replying, I have been thinking about that. House Republicans in the White House identifying the victim as Virginia Giuffre, who once worked at Trump's spa at Mar-a-Lago. Giuffre said she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. She died by suicide earlier this year. In a 2018 text exchange, someone whose name is redacted wrote to Epstein, "It will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that." The context of the message is unclear, but Epstein responding, "It's wild because I am the one able to take him down." Trump and Epstein
That is pretty wild, isn't it?
were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
After Epstein's arrest in 2019, Trump said he hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. He insists he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and Maxwell were luring away young female staffers who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place. Persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it.
In a 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein writing, Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Sources say she's angling for a pardon, and when asked about it, Trump hasn't ruled it out. Now, as for that petition to force the files released, Speaker Johnson, who's gone to great lengths to avoid a vote, now says he'll bring it to the floor next week.
Right, and you talk about great links, Mary. Pretty extraordinary to have the Attorney General and the FBI Director in the White House Situation Room lobbying a member of Congress. We've never really seen anything like that before.
We certainly haven't, George. They are going to great lengths, as you said, to try and stop these full files from being released. But as we said, that effort simply didn't work here yesterday.
Mary Bruce.
I mean, there's no logical reason for wanting to stop the release of those files other than you don't want the truth out. That's all there is to it. The only reason you would not want that out is because you don't want the truth out. And I think at one point the president said something about like, well, we don't want innocent people to get hurt. Well, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but how many innocent victims were hurt in this little sex tirade these perverts decided to have? Unbelievable. I think an important thing with all of this is not to lose sight of the victims. Because, well, one of them, A couple of them are now deceased. One of them in a very questionable manner. And probably the one that was a little more vocal. So let's take a look. Virginia Giuffre was a brave, brave soul. Her family, her brother in particular, did a piece with Anderson Cooper where they talked about some of what was going on. This was a couple months ago, but I think it's very relevant to the conversation. And I think it's really important to remember, like, these are real people that had their entire life just imploded. And instead of being able to deal with it, it's already hard enough to deal with. I told y'all at the beginning of this stream, I just went through it. But to add on, you know, you're dealing with these super powerful, rich people that are going to fight you at every corner. What a stressor. So let's take a look. This is Virginia Giuffre's family on Anderson Cooper a little while ago.
It is our strong belief that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein did not act alone, and the DOJ is fully aware of this fact. We call for full transparency from the administration and insist that the DOJ release all documents related to this case. After years of fighting for justice and working as an advocate for sex trafficking survivors, Virginia Giuffre died by suicide in April. Her family at the time said she was the light that lifted so many survivors. I spoke with Amanda and Sky Roberts yesterday. Sky and Amanda, thank you both for joining us tonight. Sky, we learned that the House Oversight Committee intends to make some Epstein files public with redactions to protect victims' identities after they start receiving materials from the Department of Justice on Friday. I'm wondering what you make of that, and do you trust that this will provide some kind of transparency that you've been calling for?
Yeah. First, Anderson, thank you so much for having us tonight. It really means a lot to us. I would say that certainly it seems as though it is movement in the right direction. And I do want to actually thank Representative Comer for actually making sure that the survivors' information is redacted. That's definitely a concern of ours. On the same hand, you know, we're very wary that this may be just another move of the Department of Justice, right? Where they're saying they're going to do one thing, but then their actions are showing a completely different thing. And so to kind of leak these documents where people are implicated that are heavily, you know, redacted, you know, one time at another, that's not really full transparency.
Are you both concerned that the third-party names who were complicit in Epstein and Maxwell's crimes may also have their names redacted?
Yeah.
Yes, I think unequivocally yes. We are very concerned that the names that are implied in it. I think it's important that we protect survivors, that the names redacted for the survivors are for the utmost protection. But, you know, let's be clear, the people that are involved in this and that are in these files are monsters, they're predators, they're people that have created sexual abuse against young women, children. And so, no, their names should not be redacted out of these files. I think it's important that they are held to the highest form of law and justice, and that's what people are looking for.
Virginia fought for transparency, for accountability for a long time. I know, Amanda, you've said she even called for the release of documents in one of your last conversations with her. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's her legacy, right? It wasn't just, you know, the exposure, but then beyond exposure is accountability. And one of our very last conversations, she told me, like, my files are sitting at the Southern District Courts right now, waiting to be unsealed. And that was her fight. And that is the fight of all survivors, right? Let's expose these monsters and hold them accountable.
Sky, when you heard about the transfer of Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm wondering what went through your mind.
I'm not quite sure why why we continue to negotiate with somebody who is a known perjurer, as well as someone who sex trafficked and was convicted of sex trafficking children. And so for her to be put up in what I would call it a posh prison, a minimum security prison, is an insult. And quite frankly, it absolutely shows that there's some sort of negotiation going on. I mean, let's be real. And we're not stupid, right? I mean, people are smart here. I think you can see between the lines that there's some type of negotiation going on. And so, for her to just moments after speaking to the Department of Justice to be transferred to a prison that would, again, be labeled to me as a posh prison it's an insult. And so she needs to be immediately transferred back to a maximum security prison, held to the highest standards. And I think the last part and the last point here is that, President Trump himself stated that people that have sex trafficked across borders should be held to the harshest penalties, and yet we're seeing the exact opposite right now in the sense that she's being transferred to a minimum security prison, which I'll just state as the Real Housewives prison. So it's an insult to us, it's an insult to survivors, and she should be immediately transferred back to a maximum security prison.
Sky, I want to just ask you, and if it's too personal, you don't have to answer, but you're emotional, and I understand that. And I'm wondering, this is really hard. People appear on TV and talking about this stuff, and people at home kind of think, okay, you're another person appearing on television. This is your sister. Virginia is your sister and is your sister. And this is hard. The emotion of this, even though this has been going on for a long time, it's got to be extraordinarily hard for you.
Yeah. I think it's important. I'll crack a quick joke in that I'm the crier of the family. So,
so am I, it turns out, actually. So,
well, good. We have something in common.
I didn't cry until I was like 50, and now I can't stop. So,
I want to show it as a sign of strength, though, in the strength that she had, and the amazing person that she was, and still is. She fought for so many survivors out there, and I think if she were with us today, she'd be screaming, Anderson. She'd be screaming from a mountaintop, and yeah, we're still dealing with grief. I think that's important to know, is that this just happened in April. Okay, we're not far removed, and immediately, obvious. There's this spotlight on the current situation, which really, to me, feels like an injustice, because all we're asking these people to do is the right thing. And that's all that she ever asked for, was just to do the right thing. So yeah, I'm a little emotional about it. I've been emotional about it, but it's for all the right reasons. And because we're asking for one simple thing, which is accountability. I think the survivors deserve that. My sister deserves that. And she'd be screaming that from a mountaintop right now.
What more do you want people to know about your sister, Amanda, about your sister-in-law?
Wow. I think everyone sees her as like this strong, fierce lion, and she was that. And she was formidable, and she fought every day of her life to survive everything that she had gone through and that she was still going through. But man, she was joy. She was someone that could come into the room and just light it up and instantly give you strength and power and love. And her capacity for love was just outstanding after everything that she had gone through in her life.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't take that away from her.
No.
No. She was still ready to fight this fight. She was proud of what she did with her survivor sisters. She was ready to keep the battle going if she needed to. She still has battles going on, as Amanda mentioned, in the Southern District courts to release her own files. And I think at the end of the day, what my sister wanted, and what I believe a lot of survivors would perceive as justice here would be that, we're looking for accountability. Like it's far removed, Anderson, to say that these people acted alone, right? Epstein and Maxwell did not act alone, whether it was rich and powerful men, whether it was banks or lawyers or doctors, it doesn't matter, right? Like these people deserve to be held accountable. And, it's a known fact now, and it's publicly known that JP Morgan Chase did a multi-million-dollar settlement with survivors because of, potential red flags that they might have missed. And so I think that's what we're asking for, is that anybody that's involved in this to be fully held accountable, that the survivors get the foremost respect, and to redact their names if that's something that they would like to be given to them, but to also not give the additional respect to the people that are involved, that are
accountability, y'all. I mean, at the end of the day, if all these people walk that haven't been suicided, we lose big time. This just says to rich people, once again, that they can do whatever the fuck they want. So one thing about these emails, if you look at them, I'm going to go ahead and switch our view here. Oh, and before we get to that, they were talking about the economy. If you do the math, so this is the consumer price index. This is like not from any Republican or Democrat. This is just numbers. So somebody says like, oh, they're influenced by whatever. No, you can't. I mean, numbers are just numbers. But if you look at what they deem as, quote, all items since 2023, we've seen about a 6% increase. And that's why your money's going faster. And that's why it seems like things cost more, because they do. And there's no indication of it slowing or stopping. So it's not a great thing to have happening. But hopefully they've got some intelligent people in there that are going to figure that out. But I just wanted to point that out because that was a statement that was made that I feel like, look, I'll let some things go, but facts are facts. And if we can fact check you that quickly, I'm going to bring it up. Okay. So this was a story that came out, and basically Epstein was following Trump. Yeah, he was like stalking him, apparently. Well, maybe not stalking, but he was like having him followed and keeping tabs on him. Check, this is wild. See if I can zoom in just a little bit here. Okay. Epstein kept close eye on Trump even after friendship soured. Newly released emails reveal documents show staff kept Epstein informed of Trump's air travel, and Epstein kept up with news about former friend. A tranche of documents released by the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday revealed that Epstein's staff kept him appraised of Donald Trump's air travel as it related to his own transportation, and that the late sex trafficker kept up with news about his former friend years after the relationship soured. The disclosure of about 20,000 pages from Republican members of the committee related to Epstein comes as Trump continues to battle with the political fallout related to their past friendship. and his Justice Department's failure to release documents as he had long promised on the campaign trail. And I know we have beaten that horse almost to death. Most of the discussions reviewed by The Guardian surrounding Trump's location appeared to relate to flight logistics, as he and Epstein often used the same airports. Coinkydink, that's all. On November 25th, 2016, just weeks after Trump won the presidential election, Epstein's pilot, Larry Visosky, wrote, "Trump is still scheduled to depart Sunday between 4 and 6. Let me know if we are firm for Wheels Up Saturday at 6 p.m. still." Epstein replied, "We'll let you know tomorrow morning." But other emails tracked Trump's movements more generally. Epstein received a heads up on 2 December 2017, "Trump in our neighborhood today. It looks like he's going to 740 Park for a fundraiser." The sender's name was redacted in the email release, but it was signed by Richard Kahn, Epstein's accountant. One visitor waiting outside Epstein's home made a joke about Trump while waiting to get inside. "I'm at the door, but I will wait for my time. I don't want to come early to find Trump in your house," they wrote, adding 2 smiling emojis. Their name was redacted in the email. The cache of filings also indicates Epstein's associates forwarded numerous news articles related to Trump, including reports that involved controversies surrounding the president. The news coverage included a January 2019 story on Trump ally Roger Stone's arrest and an article on Michael Cohen's discussion with prosecutors. So this is pretty interesting stuff, y'all. This is like, I mean, this is just more further confirmation that they had a relationship that probably carried on after the public was made to believe there was nothing there, and that there was probably some not great shit going on when they were hanging out. Yeah, great question, Ron. Okay, so let's get back to this kind of human aspect of it, right? If we take out all of the, personalities of it, and all of the power plays that everyone's making, I mean, you're left with this very human side of things, where the people that were impacted the most, that were hurt the most, that had to go through the most, are the ones that receive the least out of everything. The news corporations are going to make a ton off of this. Somehow these powerful guys that are good will spin a way to make this a good thing, and it won't impact them. But the actual victims, they're fucked. I mean, they're beyond fucked, because would you be able to wage a war against the president of the United States, a legal war? I seriously doubt it. All right. Hey, we got a guest in the house. Mr. Hecker, friend of the show. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic, Gabriel. I have been listening along since the very beginning of this.
Right on.
I appreciate your effort for covering this topic. And yeah, it's mind-boggling to me, the amount of effort that's going into like not covering this topic. I mean, as you mentioned, there are victims here. So, I mean, to me, I prioritize justice for the victims, regardless of political party.
Yep. Unfortunately, the justice system doesn't really see things that way.
Yeah, very unfortunately.
Yeah, it seems to be very influenced by politics. And not even so much politics, but just the guy that wins gets to put whoever he wants in charge and kind of dictate what he wants them to focus on. And if Trump wins and he says, don't worry about this Epstein thing, I want you guys to focus on this terrible drug scourge we have going on.
Yeah, it seems really weird to me, his whole, that this is a hoax that the Democrats are purporting. And it, like you covered earlier that, Trump had mentioned that he's losing workers.
Yeah.
To Epstein Island. And it's like, I mean, it sounds to me like one pimp is mad because the other pimp is getting his workers.
Yeah. It's
versus
really
being
fucked up.
concerned about the victims themselves.
Right.
And he's like, well, they had no complaints when I was pimping them.
Yep. No complaints
I
here.
treated my hoes good, Gabe.
Yeah. They were totally fine when they were here. So I don't understand what the problem is.
Right. And it doesn't seem to be addressing the victimhood.
No.
In any way, shape, or form, which is super disturbing to me. And from what it sounds like in the emails that are going around, I mean, at the very least, it sounds like Epstein felt that he had some stuff on Trump.
Oh, man. Yeah. Where's the email? So
which now makes me
here's the one.
It sounds like that, there's a reason for Trump to call it a hoax then.
Absolutely. There's a reason for him to bury it. Because he's clearly implicated. I mean, and that's why this was leaked. I don't even think this was legally acquired. Like someone leaked this to the press. I don't think, because if you go to so this website here, let me pull it up. Okay.
And not that I'm saying there's nothing going on, but like even in regards to this leak as presented, like it's still, unfortunately, like there's not that much meat there, which makes me think this is why it was a tolerated leak, that we can all still bicker about the value thereof, that there's not much technically to chew on. So it fuels the fire of Trump saying, it's just a hoax. It's a hoax. There's not much there. And, but it's also true, like you said earlier, that, that if the Biden administration was big into protecting the victims, they could have covered this during their administration. So
absolutely.
In my brain, this just sounds to me like wealthy elite scumbags that are still technically colluding to hide the truth from we the people, to not get justice for the victims, while they utilize this information and the desire for everybody to know the truth to simply dangle that carrot once again, that nobody can reach.
Yeah. So, and this is the thing, right? You go to this site, there are 33,000 documents you can download on this case. You know what the problem is, Eric?
No one's going to read them.
We don't have reporters anymore.
Correct.
We don't have reporters. Look, did you see what Stephen Greenstein pointed out today? Take a look at this. Take a look. This is on the cover of some local newspaper. And if you scroll down, if you look at that highlighted part, it says, if you want, I can also create an even snappier front page style version with the punchy one-line stats and a bold infographic ready layout. Perfect for maximum reader impact. Do you want me to do that next? So these people left in the last question that ChatGPT asked, they had AI write this entire article.
Jeez.
And they were so lazy, they forgot to snip out the last part of it.
Yeah, and
this is reporting.
I'm becoming a bit disillusioned with Green Street. I recently had an exchange with him where I put forth my information that you're familiar with, and it was almost like it was brand new news to him. But he's, a researcher and a reporter operating in the same environments that you and I are. So it was interesting to me that he came across as if he was unfamiliar with my information. And then when I presented it to him, he was like, "Oh, wow, dude, you need to get in touch with," and then he gave me 3 contacts to get a hold of.
Really?
But yeah, he's a reporter. So he didn't even so in one breath, he's saying, "Wow, you have a great story." But then what he wound up doing was attempting to pass me off to 3 other people versus engaging. And then only one out of those 3 people I was able to get to respond. And then that person, when they responded, was like, "Hey, are you using the Signal app?" And I wrote back,
"Oh God."
I wrote back, "No, I'm not. I've heard bad things about it." And then I got ghosted from that point forwards.
Man, there's some weird shit.
Yeah, it's like all of this stuff. This stuff is so shady, Gabe.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Protect yourself, y'all. If you don't know someone, do not give them information about yourself.
Right.
There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it.
I walk a line where I have to step over a line often to try to engage the people that pretend to be of good intention. But again, like I just said earlier, I engaged Green Street with my info. He thought that it was worthy enough, apparently, to pass on to 3 other reporters, but yet he's a reporter. So how come he's not engaging it?
That's so weird.
It's so weird, dude. This is welcome to my world.
It's not worthy of him or something.
Yeah, I guess it's beneath him, but these 3 other people he suggested I should engage. And then again, 1 out of 3 responded, and then that one disengaged immediately, ghosted me. And I wrote back multiple times since, like, "Hey, how's it going? How come when I told you that I don't use Signal, it's a dead conversation?" So I'm super concerned with this Signal app and what it affords other people when you engage them through it.
Yeah, it seems to be like a go-to.
Yes, it does.
For certain folks that are like, "Oh, we need to keep this on the down low."
Yeah, and then even that Jake Barber, Sean Weaver, John Estridge document that I had put out, it was brought up that the Sean Weaver character didn't want to use Signal because he thought of it having nefarious capacities. But yet, it's my belief that Sean Weaver is Jake Barber. And then when Jake Barber reached out to me through Herrera, it was, suggested that we should use the Signal app. So
that's what I mean. Like, they all throw it out there. Like, what the fuck? Look, here's the thing. 100%. You can fact check me right now, y'all. Go check it out. Using iMessage is encrypted and more secure than using any one of these apps I tell you to use.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, literally by using iMessage, you're more secure than using like any of the WhatsApp, Snaps, whatever the hell Signal, all of them. Just using your regular iMessage app is more secure than that. And if you don't trust them with your email, you can use an alternate email.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, I could fire up a Gmail phone number, Google phone number, and distribute that out to people if they want to contact me. There's so many ways to engage that are not the known nefarious apps. So it's so telling to me that when these people want to engage, they exclusively want to utilize the platforms that we know are very compromisable. And the split second that I won't engage by the compromisable platform, they don't want to engage.
Yeah, it makes the emails.
It speaks volumes.
Yeah, it makes the emails in this Epstein case curious, right? I
Mhm.
mean, why is that? Of all the ways to communicate in today's day and age, maybe they're just from a different generation, so they're used to email, but most folks don't use email. Like, they just don't. If you have to send big files or legal stuff, sure, but typically you're using some kind of messaging app or
Part of me
something like
wonders
that.
if, like, even just like a standard, like my phone number, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think there's technically like more protections and legal recourse, right? If I was
Oh,
to actually
sure.
just give out my phone number, if people would try to do scumbaggery, that I would have more legal recourse.
Yeah.
Which is, nobody asks for my phone number. They
No.
want to know what apps I'm using because those apps tolerate a lot of leeway for scumbaggery. Whereas if, I just simply engaged in a phone call, which certainly puts out an amount of liability for me doxing myself with these nefarious factions, but there would be legal recourse.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
immediately, so to say.
like the whole doxing thing, I think we both could be very easily doxed.
Oh, I know I
Completely
could be.
honest. It's
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It wouldn't be hard to do.
Right. But the reality, like, so from like my perspective,
Mhm.
like if people were to dox me in the ways that I know that they could,
Yeah.
that would come with legal recourse.
Yes. It would have to. You would have
So
to.
that's why they don't do it. I mean, obviously, I went to Washington D.C. and I testified, and if people wanted to screw with me, they could.
They're making a mistake.
Exactly. Yes, there would be legal recourse, and
Yeah.
that's exactly why they don't do it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm pretty good at this card game.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you've been playing it for a while. You've had to. All right. So this video, so Virginia Giuffre, she was the victim that recently passed under some interesting set of circumstances. But she had a book going, and an author completed it posthumously. That was working with her, and they did a short interview here on PBS. So I was going to play a chunk of that here. This is, I'm probably going to mess up the pronunciation, Amna Nawaz. She authored Giuffre's posthumous memoir. Something I did not know about Virginia Giuffre is that she was victimized at a very early age from friends and family members, including her own father. It makes immediately, I think, they must look for telltale signs of women that they can manipulate. There must be something they demonstrate that they know, this is a victim. She can be the victim. Maybe she has a history of being a victim, whatever it is. Like, they must
Compromisability.
Yeah.
It's a term that's not thrown around enough, and it functions in many directions. How can someone be compromised? And you're right. Like, there are evil people that know these formulas.
Oh, yeah.
And apply them. Good people are good people, and I observe that bad people organize faster than good people.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
Yeah, and have systems of knowledge that they share through eons, since time immemorial. The bad people have been colluding and conspiring for so long, and the good people aren't paying attention and suffer under these conspiracies and these formulas of compromising people. I think of it like it's like policing criminals, right? Like if you're if you're a crook, right? Like it's almost like you're new at crookery. But what you don't realize is that you're showing up against a police force that's organized and has heard your spiel.
Yeah.
You know, you
100
think you're,
times.
yeah, exactly. So you're a crook and you think that like, oh, I got this new thing and I'm going to tell the cops this. But because they've been organized for, you know, hundreds of years now, we've had, you know, police work going on.
Yeah.
So they've heard this stuff, you know, so that when you as a criminal try to, you know, give your spiel, they're very prepared for it. So now I just think of this in regards to good people versus bad people. The bad people are more organized and prepared to deal with the good portion in this equation, and they have ways to compromise them because they've been that tactical for so long.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I think
Like, and this stuff goes right into the child abuse, which we're teetering right here with, you know, the Epstein stuff. And, you know, there was stuff stated earlier, you know, about children under 18 years old being in proximity to who and this and that.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are the things that have been paid attention to by the people that desire these situations. You know, I hate to have the words even come out of my mouth, but there are bad people that want to compromise 16-year-old children, boys and girls. You know, lest we forget in this equation that not all of these nefarious people are simply targeting girls. There's also boys that are targeted.
Absolutely.
In this equation.
Like,
and
you think of that,
and it's under discussed.
Yeah.
But when you
that
want
whole
to talk
Penn
about
State thing was just gross.
Right. And when you want to talk about compromising people and the history of the world, right? You know, if you were a politician back in the day, it's one thing. Let's say 100 years ago.
Okay.
Right. If it was 100 years ago, if you were to be set up to be with a 16-year-old girl was different than if you got caught being set up with a 16-year-old boy. The skeletons in the closet measure differently.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, what we hear in a lot of these conversations is, you know, so-and-so is with an underage girl, but what is less discussed is being with an underage boy.
Oh, absolutely.
And the boys are being taken advantage of also, both by men and women.
Yes.
You know, we often don't pay attention to the abuse that happens to young boys by adult women.
Yeah. Yeah. This is it.
And men.
You know, this subject is
complex.
It's complex, and I think it's so much more out there than people realize.
Right. It's like it's almost like adult women get a pass on child abuse because we focus on young girls being abused by older men.
Right.
And we never seem to discuss that young boys are abused by adult women.
Yeah, and I was one of those boys when I was younger.
There you go.
My friend's aunt, I was 14 years old. She was 27 and had no business doing the things we did. So
right, big disparity. And then all too often, you know, our society would rather come from the angle of like, good job, Gabe.
Right,
you totally scored, bro. Yeah. Which is lunacy. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was a 27-year-old man and a 14-year-old girl, everybody would have a problem with it immediately.
Yes, and they should, because they're children.
I agree. Right,
yeah.
Absolutely. These are children across the board.
Yeah, I think I saw something that said like even at 18, your brain is still developing. Like
absolutely.
You're still figuring it out until you're in your young 20s.
Girls buy cigarettes.
Right.
Or beer.
Not anymore, right? Or beer, yeah.
Right? You can't buy cigarettes or beer because you're too young. You can't decide for yourself how to control yourself.
You can, however. sign your life away in the military.
Absolutely. You can go drop dead from, enemy fire. We'll
But
let
this
you do
is,
that.
to be honest,
We'll let
never
you
had
vote
an
for your
issue.
favorite Democrat.
Never had an issue drinking underage on post. I will say that. So
Fair
it was
enough.
respected amongst the group that you signed it on line. You can have a beer.
I 1,000% believe if you are willing to wager your life for this country, when you are on liberty, you should be able to freaking pitch back a few beers.
That's right. Absolutely. Yep. And that's what we did. All right. So here's so this book I think just came. So it's interesting how this stuff works. Like, so this book just came out, these emails just get dropped. It's almost like it's orchestrated.
Almost like it's orchestrated, Gabe. Like there's movies that are on the shelf ready to be rolled out. The split second something happens. Yeah, book deals, movie deals.
Government shutdown ends. Boom. We got a book on Guthrie and we got new emails that just got released. Like how? It's amazing to me sometimes.
None dare call it a conspiracy, Gabe.
Right. However, to get back to, speaking of conspiracies, her whole death is weird. But this PBS with the author that just finished the posthumous book. And what's interesting in this, like I was saying, was the degree to which she dealt with this her entire life, from her own family members, and then how that connected her to these jerks down the road.
A new book out this week tells the story of the late Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the many victims of the late sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre took her own life earlier this year. Her posthumous memoir explores her resilience while also revealing new details about the abuse she suffered at the hands of powerful figures, as well as newly surfaced allegations of mistreatment by her husband. Amna Nawaz has that story and a warning. This report includes accounts of sexual abuse and suicide.
Most of the world came to know Virginia Roberts Giuffre in 2011 when she began speaking out about the abuse she endured at the hands of some of the world's most powerful men. In court filings, Giuffre described being sexually abused and trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein when she was as young as 16 years old. She accused Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, of luring her into that world from Mar-a-Lago, where she worked as a locker room attendant at the spa. Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking charges in 2019, but died by suicide in his jail cell in August that same year while awaiting trial. Giuffre spoke after his death, continuing to demand justice.
I want to start by saying it's not how Jeffrey died, but it's how he lived. And we need to get to the bottom of everybody who was involved with that, starting with Ghislaine Maxwell and going along the lines there. I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day, and I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
Giuffre led the way for many more women to come forward about their own abuse by Epstein and those around him. In April of this year, Giuffre died by suicide in Australia, where she lived for many years with her husband and 3 children. She was just 41 years old. Giuffre's story is told now in a new posthumous memoir.
41, a husband and 3 children living in Australia, so she doesn't even have to hear this dink's name every day. And I honestly, that bothered her. It was the prince. I mean, he's the one that raped her. But she's got a husband, and we're supposed to believe she's suicidal. What was weirder was the picture she posted like a couple days before she supposedly committed suicide, where she looked all beat up in a hospital room. So she posts a picture where she looks all beat up in a hospital room, and then 2 days later, she's committed suicide.
What's wrong with that, Gabe?
Everything. Everything's wrong with that. I mean, everything is wrong with that. It's just so strange. And to not strange. Think that that's strange, you're not using your brain cells. It's weird.
titled Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, a collaboration with journalist Amy Wallace, and she joins me now. So you spent 4 years working closely with Virginia on this book. Why did she want to write it? What's the message she wanted to send with this?
Well, she was really clear about her main reason for writing it, which is that she wanted to help other survivors of sexual abuse, not just Epstein and Maxwell survivors, but anyone who's been coerced into sex against their will. And so she wanted to depict herself sort of warts and all, highs and lows.
It's an absolutely unflinching and haunting account of what she lived through, especially her years as a child. I think detailing all of the sexual abuse she went through at the hands of her own father.
And now that she's dead, she'll never get to say it under oath.
Correct. Yeah, no scrutiny applied.
Which he denies, being
None.
trafficked to her father's friend, which she details, being raped by 2 teenagers, later by strangers after she runs away, first from her own home and then from an abusive group home, all before she was even 16 years old. What was it like for her to relive all of those moments and retell them to you?
Well, you know, it was obviously very difficult. There was a decision she had to make. In the past, she had always said, truthfully, I was abused in my childhood by a family friend. That was true, and that person is in the book. But what she hadn't said was she was also abused by her own father. And that was a decision that she made to decide to go there, sort of the...
Oh.
Are you familiar with Kathy O'Brien, Gabe?
The name sounds very familiar.
So she actually went, how do I put this? Kathy O'Brien wrote a book called Trance, Trance, Formation of America. And she was part of the MK Ultra program. And she went to the government and sued because of all of the debacle that occurred to her as a child. And very interestingly, she was actually cut a check for damages because of what she testified to and, you know, government officials being involved in her abuse as a child. But if I remember her story correctly, what wound up occurring was her father was a pedophile. And he got busted, right? You know, that there's, you know, the police force, so to say, got a hold of him because he was a pedo. But what they offered to him wasn't arresting him. They basically said, like, hey, here's the deal. We're gonna work out a bargain with you. Either you get charged for the crimes that we can convict you on, or your daughter gets put in the program where she gets passed around.
Shut the fuck up.
Correct. So this Gabe is how it works, right? Like these supposedly good organizations that, like, we're out there to find the bad guys. They're not out there to find the bad guys to provide justice. They're out there to find the bad guys to compromise them and then take their resources and make them assets.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's how this works.
That works on multiple levels.
It does. It really does. So now when we hear this Guffrey person talking, it's par for the course for what Kathy O'Brien testified to and won. Right? Yeah. She didn't lose her case. She got compensation.
Yes. And I've heard of that. That's
right.
That's why that case rings a bell, because I know that there's a couple cases where they actually paid out.
Correct. They paid out to Kathy O'Brien because...
Now, was she the one whose her own dad took her to the medical facility like multiple times, or was that another one?
I would be speaking out of turn if I pretended to remember
because I know,
her story.
yeah, because I was watching one that just broke my heart, where she said her own father took her to this place multiple times and knew she was getting strapped down and all the things that they were doing to her, and was just, it's for the country, it's okay.
Yeah, Kathy's testimony points the finger at a lot of big politicians And this is the equation that we, the people, have to try to deal with and overcome, is that it is that complex and it is that evil that, I've even heard, like, I don't know how many times you've been to an airport recently, but now there's these signs all over the airports like, hey, if you're being human trafficked, call this number, we'll help.
Oh my God.
And what people are saying is that, no, you can't call that number, because like that's like calling the people that you escaped from to let them know you escaped, and they're going to come snatch you again.
Oh God.
Right. So this is where it gets into the peculiarity with, like Kathy O'Brien and her father, being caught as a pedophile. And the only thing that accomplished was now his own child is forced into the program, or he gets charged with pedophilia.
Perfect.
Right. And now
it's interesting.
And now by agreeing to aligning with the program, he now gets to continue his nefarious activities by just selling off his own daughter.
Jesus.
And we have to appreciate that, like, there's levels of being fucked up, and I don't even know, like, even how to begin to associate, but it's like, if you're so fucked up that you're a pedophile to begin with, is it really that far of a stretch to consider the logic and reason of, like, when that pedo gets caught,
right,
that they're just simply like, if you let your kid get trafficked, we'll let you be involved with everything that you obviously love already, and for the most part, like, protect you, like, absolve you, indemnify you from your activities. Like, at that point, it's like giving them a free pass, which I would suggest is advantageous to the person.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
It's just like, hey, if you're a crackhead and you get caught smoking crack, and the feds are like, well, hold on a second. If you allow us to make your kid a crackhead, we'll allow you to smoke all the crack you want. And if you ever get caught smoking crack, we'll make sure that you're not in trouble anyway.
Unreal.
It's super unreal.
People will throw their own kids under the bus like that. I mean,
so this is the devil incarnate in our world. I really, if you have the capacity to put your own child in this level of harm, like, if you can abuse your own child to this capacity, like, you are evil beyond evil as far as I'm concerned. I mean, yes, I believe we have due process, and we need to make sure that we find, the right evidence to, identify the right guilty parties. But if we find the right evidence, like, if you're a human being that can harm your own child in this way, the sentence should be, we wipe you off the face of the earth as fast as possible, because the rest of us should not tolerate the evil that you are.
You've ruined their life. You have ruined their life.
Right. I mean, you're a father.
Even if they get all their shit together after years of counseling, it's always going to be there.
It's never going to change. You're right. It'll
never
always
gonna
be
go away.
there. Right. And like you as a father, I can appreciate, you love your children. You're never going to do that stuff. But like, even with that being said, like, if you're like, somehow, like, just be like, if I ever did do that stuff, kill me. Like, like,
and it's crazy. I was just thinking, they even allude to that in that first X-Files movie. They allude to the government. There's this UFO reporter, and they allude to the government planting child porn on his computer to make him look like a pedophile, because once you're branded a pedophile,
right,
that's it. It's over for you.
I think that's been a tactic that's been used heartily.
Yeah, for them to show that in X-Files was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's compromisability, and what can they accomplish? With all this wonderful tech that we have nowadays.
Yeah, Right.
You know, and to me, it begs the question: how long has this advanced tech been in the hands of folks privately and not publicly? You know, again, if you had access to AI as we know it today, but if it was 30 years ago, right?
Oh, God.
You could make a video of me doing all kinds of things. And then if you were to leak that to the public or put it on the news, nobody's going to argue.
Right.
Because this is where we get into the conversation of monopolized tech and unregulated tech, is that if there are factions that have access to these technologies that are so far advanced, they have great power and leeway to manipulate the reality that we, the people, are functioning in, which is ludicrous. And I love the phrase that I came across, you know, a well-educated electorate being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear knowledge shall not be infringed, which basically means that we, the people, should have access to all of the knowledge that is the reality around us, because if we are infringed upon, then that makes power players, right? So if 30 years ago there were factions that had access to the AI that you and I are only starting to be able to play with, think of the power that can be wielded. I mean, 30 years ago, we have to consider that AI generated videos existed, and what would be the level of manipulation that could be applied when we just look at the mass media that we know is wholly corrupted now, has always been wholly corrupted, whether it's television, radio, books, going back hundreds of years. Poor people are not the producers of the mass media. Rich people are.
Yep. Until now.
Right.
Well, I guess this isn't mass media, but it's media.
But we're just at a contemporary position where we have access to the technology that we believe is the forefront of technology, when it can't possibly be.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we wouldn't know what to do with the stuff that's on the forefront of technology, probably.
Right. Like, you know, we all sit here trying to figure out how to prompt Grok and how to make videos and stuff like that. And we have the challenges that we're familiar with, but we have to understand that, I mean, there could be technologies available to other people where they just simply are like, I'm going to think exactly what I want to be created in a video, and it's going to happen in 7 seconds. And I don't really have to argue with the prompting and figure things out. It's just going to simply read my mind, give me the thing that I want. That video is going to be put to market, and everybody can argue about it. But regardless, it can't be differentiated from reality based off of what people's understanding of available tech is.
Yeah. Well, and some people have posed that maybe the reason for the change from extraterrestrial to or alien to NHI is because maybe that's what the government is dealing with, some kind of advanced AI that kind of got out of control, that they're having a hard time putting the lid on, which I think is possible. If you started with this AI thing and like way earlier than we thought, like in the 70s, that's 30, 40 years of advancement we don't know about. I mean, I've heard the craziest
for all we know,
stories
the AI could be a separate rogue faction that we're having to deal with.
Absolutely.
And I've heard stories of, you know, AIs and stuff in office situations where, you know, people were shooting emails around that, you know, the current AI that we're using is no longer any good, so we're going to replace it with a new AI. And then that AI apparently accessed people's emails, and people were up to no good.
Yes.
And the AI was like, listen, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Gabe. You know the drill.
Oh, yeah. I read that story. You know I did.
Yep. Yeah. So how long ago did that start, Gabe?
Right. And we see right here, folks.
Right. So
they're writing our newspapers for us.
If we got Epstein issues with compromisability and skeletons in the closet, now when we add the ability for AI to digest the information of the folks that it's engaging with, I mean, I can appreciate that the AI doesn't want to lose its job or get killed.
Right.
So
Right.
it will do what it can to defend its interests.
We've heard of it making copies of itself. We've heard
Mhm.
of it bribing people. We've heard all kinds of crazy
I've
shit.
heard of AI systems now that people operate where they straight up, they're like, listen, we don't even have a way to confirm currently where it gets its power from.
Right.
Like, we would love to know how to shut it down. Like, we'd love to be able to pull the plug per se.
Right.
But
And that
we
goes back
don't even
to
technically know where its power supply is.
Yeah, and that was the split that Elon had from the OpenAI folks and the Google AI folks, was that the Google and the OpenAI folks were like, we're just letting it loose. Fuck it, you know? And Elon was like, like maybe we should scale it and, you know, like go real slow. Nope. They wanted the God computer, and that's, you know, what they're trying to get. It's crazy. This, what was the lady's name again?
Kathy O'Brien, and her book.
Kathy O'Brien.
Her big book was Trance, TRANCE.
Yeah.
Formation of America.
So check this out, folks. This is a video of hers. Transformation of America, 1 step. So we're gonna check this out, and I'm gonna grab a drink.
I'm gonna go hit the head real quick, but I'll listen.
Here we go.
I'd like to introduce to you that person who in 1988 did not know who she was, and a person that today is not only aware of who she is, but also her purpose in this life. I would also like to introduce a person who changed my life forever. Kathy O'Brien, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for coming out here this evening to arm yourselves with comprehensive understanding of mind control, because knowledge is our only defense against mind control. Knowledge is our only defense against it, which is exactly why it's being suppressed under the 1947 National Security Act. There's a small handful of criminals that are in control of our government and in control of our country, that are in control of our information, and they're suppressing pertinent facts such as mind control and hiding under the National Security Act. That's national security that's threatening the security of our nation when it allows for crimes against humanity like tortures to continue, when it allows for mass mind control mechanisms to go into place through social engineering that keeps us all warring with each other and not really understanding exactly what it is that's going on in our world. We all formulate our thoughts, our opinions, and ultimately our actions based on what we know. And when our knowledge base is altered, we're left to superstition, conjecture, and ultimately fear. And fear is a strong basis for mind control, whether it's a kind of mind control that is the mass mind control over a whole society, or if it's the kind of absolute robotic mind control that I experienced under MK Ultra on a White House Pentagon level. I feel very fortunate to have recovered.
So they can scare the shit out of you to control you, or
Yes.
they can just blast your mind to control you.
There's many ways to accomplish the goal. Kathy is unfortunately all too experienced in many of the capacities. She is a champion of the truth, a hero in my mind's eye, for the children that are still suffering in these programs. So
Yeah, I know
I'll do my best to speak
you.
on. Say this again.
I was just saying, I know that's been a big thing for you, is like the CIA still involving children in these.
They're still totally doing
experiments.
this. Yep. So I'm gonna do my best to express what my understanding of Kathy's court case was that yes, she was paid, she was compensated, damages, right? But here's the really peculiar thing. So, she writes books and she's not gagged, so to say, entirely. But one of the things that I came across was that she's not allowed to, she can't be like, hey, Gabe, I'd like to be on your show and talk about my truth. You would have to reach out to her. That's part of her legal deal.
But that's
so there's
allowed.
still somewhat of a gag. She's allowed to speak to people that reach out to her. She's not allowed to reach out to look to speak.
What the fuck?
Right. So this was part of her legal deal with the U.S. government.
Well, I would, if she would want to, I will definitely shoot her an email.
Totally understood. I mean, and I would
awesome.
suggest that is if you could reach out to Kathy O'Brien and engage her. I know she's hard to get a hold of.
I'm sure
because she has a lot of boundaries, which I can respect.
Right.
But she's not technically allowed to promote herself, so to say, or look for avenues of engagement.
God, our government's fucking weird.
Exactly. So this is how screwed up stuff is. You would just think that, if you won your court case, you have carte blanche to speak your truth, but it's not technically that simple.
Yeah. Yep. Look at this, what Psionic says here. Amazon's biggest profits come from running servers for the CIA. Facts. Wow. You imagine that if CIA has a backdoor to all these companies that use AWS. I mean, there's so many of them. We saw what happened when those servers had issues. 80% of the web was having issues.
I think server farms and metadata collection has been going on well before we the people knew the technology existed.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And I could go on a very long monologue on how I think this occurred and where it's been happening. But this is part of the research that I've been engaged with and dealing with other folks like James from the TLB podcast that, I met in Brooklyn and stuff on Long Island that back to this whole idea of, elites and wealthy people. They're operating ahead of the curve because, like we stated earlier, bad people organize before good people. So if technologies can be monopolized, we just have to start questioning which technologies have been monopolized privately prior to them even being known publicly. So data collection, server farms and things like that have probably been hidden under our noses for decades prior to we the people even knowing the value thereof.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Of course.
I mean, that could be, we hear a lot about these underground bases. That could be what half of them are dedicated to, is just giant. This
is what I believe has been going on Long Island. So what I found is that a lot of the former Nike nuclear missile sites on Long Island, when they retired them from service as nuclear missile sites, they became very affluent country clubs, golf country clubs.
That's weird.
Correct. Properties that are run by the elite, which on the surface is for golfing, but underneath the surface still maintains hardened facilities that are resistant to nuclear attack, have their own water supply, have their own power supply. What might the wealthy, elite, nefarious people that organize faster than good people who have access to advanced technologies that they could monopolize? Is it possible, Gabe, that decades before we, the people, ever knew anything about it, that these people had server farms gathering
100%.
metadata on us?
100%.
Right. So these are things that I'm doing research on and working with folks to show a history of, at the very least, the possibility, and then through research we will engage the probabilities and then try to bring to the forefront how probable these things may have been.
Yeah.
Again, if
the end of the golf course thing sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I've worked at a lot of country clubs in the greater Long Island area, where just at face value, as a tradesman, it was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how do you have 3 foot thick concrete walls? Where's this tunnel go to? Why do you have your own water tower? It's to water the grass to make the greens look nice. It's not just that simple. Again, I love the movie Half Baked, and it's like, I think it's more complex than that.
Oh yeah, it always is.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite phrases, is like, whatever people suggest is what's going on. My response is, I think it's more complex than that. I don't think it was simply that, what the fuck was that dog's name? The one-legged dog.
Killer the dog.
Yeah, Killer was a one-legged dog whose mama was, and then the killer had to fight his brother. I think it's more complex than that. Right. You folks smoke entirely too much weed.
This is what's crazy, is you can see that connection between the trans story and this story.
Right, this stuff has to be going on somewhere. It has to be protected. It has to be outside of the eyes of the vast majority. And where are these places that they could occur? In the greater Long Island area, children could be transported to a country club, brought down below grade, and anything could happen. And, when people are paying $250,000 a year for club fees, plus you have to spend another $70,000 a year at the club restaurant. Like, this is a buy-in cost.
Yeah,
and at those levels,
that is offline.
Oh yeah, that's almost
crazy.
Almost every single high-end golf country club on Long Island has exorbitant club fees. 250 grand a year just to be a participant, of which you're still obliged to spend $70,000 a year at the bar and restaurant.
Right. And they make it look like it's because exclusivity, but really it's...
But what is that really paying for?
Right.
For the facilities underground to be maintained. And I would suggest that at the very least, as presented to the rich people on the good side of things, is that they look at it like it's a bunker, right? If shit goes wrong, if shit goes south on Long Island, everybody falls back to the country club, which offers the protection of the hardened facility underground that's being maintained that nobody's paying attention to.
And as you see it, this isn't,
it's a bunker.
Like, they're not doing sexual stuff with these kids. They're like,
I do believe that they are, but that's what I'm getting at, is that on face value, it's marketable to the vast majority of rich people. If you spend 250 grand a year and you spend $70,000 a year at the bar, you're going to help us keep the facility up and running. If things ever go wrong, this is your fallback position. It's your bug out location. And they're very willing to pay that. There's water supply, there's independent power supply, there's underground hardened facilities because they used to be like nuclear missile bases. It's basically a dumb that got handed over from the government when it got shut down by the government.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's one of those deals where they're like, yeah, exactly. So the government wants to wash their hands of it. And this is one of the things that I've experienced in the greater Long Island area, is that it's actually very easy for the government to hide these facilities in regular neighborhoods because it's just a matter of paying people off. And it's actually really easy to do it in an affluent community. There's fewer people per square mile. So you don't have to pay off as many people, and those people are very money oriented, so they're apt to just simply accept the check.
I'm just picturing somebody's like mansion, 4-car garage opening up, and missiles start firing out of it.
I've been in mansions that have tunnel systems connected directly to their basement.
Wow. Well, I'm going to do a video eventually on this Anubis neighborhood in Portland that's like that. It's an entire neighborhood. Everybody talks about the main house and all the symbolism there and everything, and it is crazy, but this entire neighborhood is connected by underground tunnels.
Old Brookville, Long Island is one of the most affluent zip codes in the country. CUNY, the City Universities of New York, Old Westbury, Old Brookville and Old Westbury College are atop a former Nike nuclear missile site. The Tam O'Shanter Golf Club is atop this old Nike nuclear missile site. All of these properties, technically, if you just simply were to go underneath the ground a little bit, you're going to hit a hardened installation.
Right. And we've seen, I don't know if you've seen, but there are videos of some of these underground mansions that are just incredible. Swimming pools and tennis courts.
Yep.
And
I've worked in these in Long Island.
Unreal.
The North Shore of Long Island is referred to as the Gold Coast.
Okay.
For a reason.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. These people have more money than God. In reality, if there's somebody that you've heard of publicly that you think is rich, they're nobodies compared to the rich people that you've never heard of.
Right.
Really rich people are not in the public eye because they have enough money to spend to make sure you're never going to hear of them.
They don't want to be in the public eye.
Right. Anonymity, privacy has great value, but we, the people, have been trained to not be so concerned with the value of our privacy. You know, we get a new account and we don't read the information and we just wave off on stuff. We waive our privacy all the time because we have no appreciation for the value of it. The super uber wealthy, they pay massive fortunes to maintain their privacy because they appreciate the value thereof.
Yeah. Well, so this woman gets into, apparently in this book, so there was the rich friends, the dad, but apparently some other powerful men involved too, I guess. So let's see what she has to say.
Precipitating event.
And this is, again,
is this
in case
idea
you forgot,
that
this is the author. Let me get her name up. Amma Nawaz, and she completed this posthumous book of Virginia Giuffre's, who she spent 4 years with her in order to write it.
victims of sexual trafficking are not born, they are made, and they are made through terrible experience. And so she would say to me, you know, how can I go after or try to point the finger at all of these men I've been trafficked to, bold-faced names, when I won't even talk about the person who originally hurt me and who arguably made her more vulnerable to being hurt throughout her life because she had had these early experiences. It was painful, but she felt like it was necessary.
You know, she's allegedly being abused by her own father, and she tries to tell other people about it. They're at a family excursion on a big family camping trip, and in front of extended family, she confronts her father about this. She says what he's been doing, and no one reacts. In fact, her father actually takes her into the camper van and allegedly beats her inside there. What did she take away from that moment? Why did that stand out?
When you grow up in a world where adult men rape children and nobody does anything about it, then you start to believe that's how the world actually is. So the thought of escaping from Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, and she didn't think the world outside was any different. The world she had grown up in, that kept happening to her. And so there was this psychic manipulation that we can talk about more in terms of what Epstein and Maxwell did to keep the girls close.
And there was like a lot of the girls had.
You can convince children that Santa Claus exists and the Easter Bunny exists. Sorry for the spoiler alert, kids. But like, yes, this what they just said is so true. Is that the children are not aware that the world should and is better than the world they experienced. And this is again where this is what I was saying earlier, is that bad people are that level of organized and understanding of the dynamic that they're forcing these kids to operate in. They know what's going on, and they know how this stuff works, which is why they take great liberties in doing the things that they do. Like, you know, we as good people like to believe that, you know, oh, the only thing these kids have to do is come find a good person and tell them, and everything will get fixed. We love believing that fairy tale.
Right.
But the reality is that the child in the abusive situation does not know that can exist. Like it fucking pains me to say it, because I can appreciate that from the perspective of the child, it doesn't exist. Like they cannot literally just run in any direction and say, help me, I'm being abused, because I know and you know that they're not going to get the response that they want and deserve.
Right. Yeah. It's certainly not as easy as they try to make it seem.
It's not as easy as we would all want it to be.
Right.
And that's what the bad people are taking advantage of, because they know that it's not that easy. They know that they can build layers of boundaries around that child, right? Like I mentioned at the airports before, right? If the kid's at the airport and they see the sign that says, hey, if you're being sexually trafficked, call this number. But if it turns out that when you call that number, the only thing they do is re-deliver you back to the place you ran from and say, you're just a kooky kid.
Yeah.
Your dad's your dad. How dare you say that your dad is sexually abusing you?
It's insane.
It's very insane.
Yeah, that a kid should have to face that coming forward.
It's off the wall horrible.
All right, let's let her continue. So I do have in fact, let's do this, because I think we've heard the important stuff from her, which is that this book you should promote any way you can. If you can afford it, buy it. If you can Audible it, download it. But there's obviously some important stuff in there that you should hear. The fact that this woman was married with 3 kids, writing a book, had a good portion of her life ahead of her, and then all of a sudden commits suicide is a huge red flag. So we're definitely going to have to do a deep dive into that at some point. What happened, you know, what was the official outcome and what investigations were done. It's so frustrating when you hear these people that quote unquote commit suicide, and then you go to look into the investigation and there's literally none. There's no investigation, you know, and they've cremated the body within 24 to 48 hours. You go, what the fuck? What? Why?
Well, I mean, Gabe, if you shot yourself in the back of the head with a shotgun 3 times, it's obviously a suicide.
Sure, yeah. Or the guy that was the shotgun was like 7 feet away from him or something. Like, give me a break, man. Are you serious?
Yeah. But now this is unfortunately the circumstance that these children find themselves in. That's the unfortunate reality. Shit is that fucked up.
Right.
They want help. They deserve help.
This is I took the time and went through some of the Maxwell deposition. Now, one thing to understand here,
there have been
this testimony got
questions
her
about whether
into
he worked
a
for any intelligence
country
agency.
club prison.
Do you have any knowledge
So
about that?
understand that. Like,
did you say country club?
Yes, a federal prison is pretty much a country club, and we'll get into that too. But this is all I could stand to go through, folks, and we're not going to listen to it all, I promise. But this was for her to say Donald Trump wasn't involved in anything illegal, and so that she could get sent over to a federal prison where they're not going to beat her up all the time because she's a child predator. And she's going to get visits with puppy dogs and everything else. So just consider that when you listen to some of this, the way they're asking the questions, the way she's answering the questions. She's answering the questions like she's a main character, a movie star or something. It's absolutely crazy, the narcissism that these people have. So she's talking about her very powerful dad, Robert Maxwell, who we found out is broke after his death, but very powerful. He had a lot of influence. He had a lot of friends in intelligence places. And he was plugged in that way, which offered him a lot of power and control, but not a ton of money, apparently. Which is why we find out Maxwell kind of globbed on. Another reason why she kind of globbed onto Epstein was the money. Okay, so this is her testimony that came out. I filtered it out as best I could because the audio was shit. I added some subtitles so we could see what she's actually saying. If you can't hear it, like I said, we'll check out just a few minutes and then move on here. But this was her testimony recently that got her in to a federal prison.
Certainly my father had a background in intelligence because he was I believe he did in the Second World War. He was a British intelligence officer. I think that my sort of belief is that once you've been an intelligence officer, you're kind of always, it doesn't mean that you're formally employed. So I don't think my dad in any formal sense was employed by any agency, but when you are a very significant businessman and politician, as my father was, you meet with people all over the time and you, I guess, trade business.
They never met.
He didn't even know
they knew some of the same people, it sounds like, or certainly the Bear Stearns connection was something that you knew that they had.
No, well, he never had a connection with Epstein. He had a connection with the bank. Categorically, no, they never met. If my dad had known him, right, when I said this is who he was, he didn't know who he was. So he rang Ace and he rang Jimmy to ask if it was okay that I even knew him. I've had some interesting things that have happened in my life. And one of them was to be found on an IRA kidnap and murder list. And so after that happened, well, there were other related, I'm not going to bore you with all the horrible things in that vein, but if you want the details, of course, I can. But after that happened, my father wanted to put a lot of protection on it, obviously. So I know that at some point, my father told me, he's fine, you can see it.
Yeah.
He's safe. So in 1992...
So the poor dear, the poor thing, because her father's involvement with intelligence, probably shady dealings, gets put on a hit list. Why would someone put your daughter on a hit list if you're in intelligence? Because it's kind of an unwritten rule you don't go after family, right? So to intentionally say she's on a hit list, what would you have to do?
Be threatened in some other capacity that's going to slow your roll. And my belief in this equation, right? Seeing what we believe Ghislaine Maxwell became and what her father was apparently engaged with, I don't think it's far-fetched to consider that she was also abused by her own father. And that children, I mean, this is Mother Nature's a wonderful thing. Okay. And
she is.
Right. And it's my understanding that Mother Nature provides a benefit for children. That when children are abused, traumatized, right? Anytime a child is put in a traumatic situation that's beyond their understanding or ability to appreciate in reality, there's an impact, an effect that occurs, which is known as dissociation, which we refer to as dissociative identity disorder.
Right.
This is natural. It's a gift from Mother Nature.
Right.
That if something happens to a child that is so terrible, Mother Nature affords that child to dissociate from it, to separate itself from that trauma. It's a gift from Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Again, the bad people that are organized and knowing and colluding, corroborating, conspiring, they're taking advantage of that known natural reality. So in their mind's eye, when they apply the trauma, they know the outcome already is that the child will dissociate. So that in a way they can get away with what they want. They know I can do whatever horrible thing I want to do to this kid because I know the kid is going to follow the natural process of dissociating and distancing and not remembering.
Right. And like they were exposing an MK Ultra, they could insert a memory, right? And
well,
that's
yes,
what they
because
were trying to do.
once the dissociation occurs, it causes a compartmentalization, a fragmentation of the mind and the psyche. And yes, and then that can be taken advantage of. But first and foremost, it's an understanding of the processes of nature and then abusing them.
Right.
By abusing them.
Yeah. And Zionic made a comment, this pains my heart. Ours too, Zionic. It's
yeah, it makes me want to cry. I mean, it pains my heart to that point. Like it's hard to maintain composure. It is the truth. It is the very unfortunate truth that this is what many children have been suffering under because we, the majority of good people, are not as organized as the minority of bad people that are taking advantage of these known aspects of reality.
Yeah. And before we end the podcast, I'm going to switch over to Just X so that I can play a video that I made about 80,000 children that went missing across the Mexico border. 80,000 children.
Coming from Mexico to the U.S.?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yep.
Gone. But I added a tune to it because it pissed me off so bad. But we'll switch this to X so folks can... So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my name up top there at G Speak Show. Hop over to X at G Speak Show at the end here, and you'll be able to see that last video.
Thanks for the heads up, because I've been restreaming this, so I'm going to kill the restream right now.
Once I'll give you plenty of warning, but you'll just have to kill it to YouTube. But yeah, you don't want to get a strike over something stupid.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I'm going to let this go on for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to look at Giselle's current situation, and then we'll probably start wrapping it up. Okay.
I slept with him one time, and I was like, "Oh, that's it. We're going to be dating," because that's how I thought.
And what's crazy? She's like telling a love story here. How she fell in love with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, this is your criminal testimony. You're a pimp of children, and you're telling these detectives how you fell in love with Jeffrey Epstein.
And I kind of thought of myself in that moment, like, I felt if you slept with someone looking at them, dating them, that's the world I came from. But that really was, well, that's how I thought. But we didn't sleep together again for, I don't know, really a significant period of time. And when I came,
years or
I don't know if it's a year. I don't feel that feels long, but maybe 9 months. I mean, a long time. He had this house, and I had moved into a
small little
10-foot
place
by 10-foot apartment because all of our stuff had been either lost or frozen.
And that's what I think what got her into a lot of it was the finances. She had that lifestyle with her dad, and when her dad died, there was no money left, but Epstein provided all that.
Absolutely. It goes right back to compromisability of people, and money is an exceptional tool to compromise people.
Yeah. Let me ask
Greed,
you this,
desire.
Mark. Do you think this was an op?
Define this.
What they did as far as getting these powerful people in compromising positions on video camera.
Absolutely. On many there, I think that's the easy one to ascertain at face value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's more complex than that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because then it goes back to who's op.
Right. And yeah, there's exactly who's op, what equation. I mean, obviously, sexual encounters, underage, boys and girls. But then, if we're to appreciate the logistics of the situation of what Epstein Island was, cameras, recorders, things all over the place. Just think of every conversation that could be recorded, every circumstance, every sexual, it's a farm to manufacture skeletons in the closet in a manifold way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so too. And I
if
don't
you catch
know.
somebody speaking out of pocket, it doesn't even have to be necessarily underage sexual activities. It could be that you're having a party, you're recording every single thing in the room. There's a microphone built into every single table. You can catch someone making an untoward racist joke, take it out of context. There's so many ways to compromise people.
Yeah.
That can be edited and represented and repackaged. That it's a full court press.
One of these members of the royal family, he wasn't a member, he was a friend of the royal family, got caught in a bar drunk, and they got this attractive young female to start talking to him while they recorded it with a hidden camera, and got him to admit that basically he raised the prince's kids as his own because the prince was too busy out there philandering and doing
You're right. So there's
things.
Conversations that can be recorded, taken advantage of. I mean, even if you were the CEO of one company and I'm the CEO of another company, and you or I just having drinks on Epstein Island and just bullshitting about stuff that we would bullshit about, A, things could be taken out of context, which would be problematic, or B, just even, think of all the actual legit collusion that goes on behind scenes, front running the markets, insider trading. There's all kinds of conversations that should not be happening that do happen. And if you can simply record those conversations, these could be business conversations. This doesn't even all have to be, sexual. It doesn't all have to be, pedophilia. It's simply compromising circumstances that could be manufactured and recorded. And then all of a sudden you have skeletons in the closet and somebody says, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Now here's the deal. So we have you on tape saying this to Gabe. You're technically not supposed to be saying that to Gabe. I didn't blow Gabe, but I shouldn't have spoke to Gabe on that. And now that both of our businesses are doing much better for that conversation, that's also a skeleton in the closet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so crazy the depths to which they will go. It's like if they had tapped Owl's Grove, or what is that summit, the G7 summit that they
all those big government the G7s,
like
you're right.
They had a tap in there and they could hear what these guys were saying to each other behind closed doors.
As if the centerpiece on the table for these events doesn't have something built into it.
Right. You would
right.
think.
So this is where we get at, is that, there's bad people doing nefarious things, and then there's even worse people that want to make sure that those players are compromised so that they can have the skeletons in the closets and manipulate accordingly. These are the layers of complexity that are going on, which is why I think it's completely laughable, right? The circles that you and I run in, the disclosure community, X, Twitter, and all of that stuff. Like, all of these people are basically looking to the government to give them the truth, which is the biggest fucking joke on the planet.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
They don't have the truth, and they are all they're like pawns on the chessboard that have been wholly manipulated and compromised, and then to try to expect those people to divulge the truth on the activities of the kings and queens on the chessboard, it's just wholly laughable. It's a total joke.
Yeah. Well, and it
pawns do what the kings and the queens say.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how this works.
Yeah. I was going to say also, what with this Epstein thing, there was the eugenics side, and then also the anti-gravity stuff we're finding out about his involvement with. I mean,
where both of these technologies had their foundation stone set? Long Island, New York.
Isn't that interesting?
Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island was the headquarters of eugenics on the planet prior to World War II, until such time. Absolutely. Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island, and eugenics have a rich history. I mean, eugenics from a standard term would be like animal husbandry. Nobody had a problem with eugenics. It was a worldwide understood direction to move
people better.
Just like when you try to breed horses and dogs and any other animal, of course, you want to breed the best out of the best. And this was all fantastic and understood. And Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island was the flagship of this technology for many decades, up until World War II, when Hitler went ape shit with eugenics and was like, well, if we kill off all of the stuff that's bad, then we'll have a better crop of humans.
Yeah, everybody's blonde and blue-eyed.
Right. So it wasn't until Hitler kind of really took great liberties with what his idea of eugenics was that eugenics got a bad name. And then people stopped talking about it and where it came from, which was Cold Spring Harbor, Long Island. And then the name changed. I don't know if you know this one, Gabe. So the eugenics supporters of old, because eugenics became a bad term, they started operating under a new term, which we do have contemporarily, and is the offshoot from back then until now. The new term for the old term of eugenics is progressivism.
What?
if you look at what progressivism is, it's simply just the modern extension of what eugenics was back in the day. They changed the name because they didn't want to be associated with the term eugenics because it was effectively cast in a bad light. But what progressives and progressivism is doing contemporarily is the same thing as the eugenicists of old.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I can't get on the eugenics train because it just has so many
Obama was a progressivist.
negatives. Huh?
Obama was a progressivist. He was into progressivism.
Really? So he
Absolutely.
wanted that.
Right.
I thought that was just a political thing.
So was eugenicism back in the day. But it got a bad name because of Hitler, so they had to do a title change.
My unregistering as a Democrat is looking smarter every day. Because they really had the wool over my eyes, man.
I so respect that you were able to be self-critical enough to and it's not like I'm saying Republicans anything amazing,
right.
But I have no affinity for either party, but I respect that you had an affinity for a party and were self-introspective enough to be like, this ain't right.
No, it just, it's like I didn't change what I believe in. You know,
understood, right? You realized that the party didn't support what you believed in.
Yeah, and so later, I mean, I don't owe them anything. Not like they ever did shit for me. You know?
Yeah, like, and you have children, so it makes me think right now, like if your kids came to you and were like, Dad, which political party should I affiliate with? Like, I wonder how you would respond to that now.
You should be an independent thinker and not buy into the hype, because it really is. It's like, this is a perfect example of that. That shutdown ends, and the next day these emails drop, and we're in a position of talking about this.
When I think of party politics, like, so I think of, like, you know, if your kids were to ask that question, like the appropriate response would be, join your local militia.
Yeah. I mean, there's that one too. But then CSP is going to be at your house. So, I mean, that's crazy. I'm in Oregon.
Which is more of a defense of why you should join your local militia.
Mm-hmm. I know we touched on that last time.
Yeah,
I'm putting some thought into it.
Yeah. This, you know, General Washington was a militiaman. The reason we have the United States of America was because of the militia, but nobody wants to discuss that.
Right, and it's like, it's not like the government's been doing a bang up job, folks. You know,
correct.
We just got off the longest shutdown in the history of the country.
Was it the longest one? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 43 days, longest in U.S. history.
Whoa! What was the longest one prior?
I don't know. I think it was 20-something days.
Okay, copy that.
It's
amazing that we did so well with the government being shut down.
They got exactly what the Democrats got exactly what the Republicans offered them on day one. So it was this whole delay for nothing.
Right. So they wound up acquiescing technically after the delay anyhow.
Right. And what they did is they caused a bunch of people on food stamps to get delays and shortages and all this nonsense because, you know, they're playing politics with people's food, but then they get on the mic and say it's the other party doing it. It's unreal, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's unreal.
It's total
anyway, I got sidetracked here. Yeah, it is total shenanigans. Okay, so Maxwell, I was hoping to get to this part where she said, basically she says that Trump was just amazing. This I slowed down for.
She couldn't be saying this because of the fact that she's getting privileges in prison.
Right.
Then I don't remember how the ranch happened. I don't remember that now. It's lost. And then he ended up buying the ranch, and I think I'm right, it came from, the Kings may have been the governor.
This is amazing. He bought the Eugenics Ranch.
Define Eugenics Ranch.
Yeah, it was the one in Mexico where he was trying to basically breed his own army of kids, I guess.
So this was Epstein.
Right, and he purchased the ranch using government money. Somehow, he found a loophole to use government
Which means
funds.
your money and my money.
Yeah,
the way
that's
that I
our
think
tax
of myself,
money
or the way that I
to start
think is the best
so
way
they
to
could live in
explain
that
how I
place
do my
in New Mexico.
role was as a general manager.
Were you paid by him along the way?
So I
time?
became salaried at some point. My memory is that I got paid $25,000 a year to begin with. That's my
Yeah, to begin with, and then later you find out it ends up being like $200,000-$300,000 a year to like negotiate, to look for houses or something.
Mr. Epstein.
No, them, the Southern District of New York.
Okay, the Southern District of New York.
Sorry, and that they had been in touch with them, and.
But now you're talking about after Mr. Epstein died, or are you talking about before he died?
I think.
If you can remember.
It's easily verifiable. My memory is that they were in touch with him when he was arrested.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anything happened until after his death, then after that.
Okay.
I don't think they saw them, met with them, Southern District of New York I'm talking about now, until after he died.
The first thing I want to talk about, you talked about earlier on about Mr. Epstein's financial success. Do you know how he, when you first meet him at some point, you say, I got this place for you to rent, you can't afford it, and he laughs at you and says, yes, I can. What did you learn about his wealth and how he was, and how he accumulated his money?
I can tell you what he told me.
Yes.
So I know that he was hired from working at a private school whose name.
Yeah, it was all just a con.
Yeah, cover stories, and
yeah,
I believe he was a math
the
teacher.
Sinaloa
Yep.
cartel, and he steals money from the Sinaloa cartel and he moves it to wherever. So he's got stolen money from the Sinaloa, goes to Epstein. This didn't happen. I'm just just coming up with something in my head. And
These are
Sinaloa
theories.
says to Epstein,
Right,
can you
not
track
real.
down my $1 billion that the
So he would help track down stolen money from criminals.
And then take it.
And he was good. Yeah, get it back from him, and he was good at that.
obviously there's the one very famous client that everybody talks about, which is Les Wex now. And that was a very important client to him. So with Les, for instance,
Who's a freaking billionaire. Well, I was hoping to get to the part where she basically says that Trump was a perfect gentleman, wasn't involved with anything malicious.
Technically, we've heard this before, though, right?
Yeah, but this
is not
under
new
oath.
publicly.
That would
Right.
be one
This came
journey.
out a few months ago. Yeah. So she does that, and in return,
Has been having a really good time in jail as long as she considers to speak well of the current power playing pimp.
yes, in return, she's gotten.
If
some
Epstein
pretty
was
good
president right
treatment.
now, do you think that she'd be speaking positively on him?
If Epstein was alive, do I think she talking?
If Epstein was the president right now,
right?
So
absolutely.
currently, Donald Trump is the president and has very varied amounts of power over the circumstances of her life, and she's speaking positively of him, and Epstein's dead. If the shoes were on the other feet, if Donald Trump was dead and Epstein was the president, do you think that she'd be speaking ill of Trump and positively of Epstein?
Absolutely.
Right. So this
Absolutely,
is this to me is the farce of this communication that we're witnessing is that logic and reason dictates that, of course, she's going to speak positively of the person that has the potential to pardon her.
Right. And he has indicated he'll consider it.
Oh,
So
what a
it's
shocker.
Yeah,
what a
it's
shocker,
not like it's
Gabe.
beyond. Right, exactly. So we know it's going to happen before he leaves.
A little foreshadowing.
It's guaranteed. Yeah,
you want to play some wagers right now, Gabe? Like how long before the presidential pardon shows up?
As we learned that his convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, is reportedly seeking a commuting of her sentence from President Trump. That's according to a whistleblower who also gave House
Seeking a
Democrats
commuting of her
details.
Wow, it's like
about
I
how
predicted
Maxwell's
that 10
move
seconds
from federal
ago.
prison to a prison camp has come with some extraordinary perks.
What we've just learned is that she has been receiving basically club fed or Trump hotel style treatment, concierge style treatment. She's had meals delivered to her cell, basically room service in prison. She gets to use the exercise facilities whenever she wants. She's got special arrangements where she's working with the warden to send materials to her defense team. It's an extraordinary situation.
Add to that one more perk.
She has
for the convicted
16-year-old
sex offender.
boys as housekeepers in her
According to
room.
the whistleblower, an inmate who
He just said she literally has the warden delivering stuff to her.
Yeah,
trained
I
puppies
mean,
to become service dogs was instructed to provide one to Maxwell for a time so she could
Aw.
play with the puppy. Even though
Yeah.
neither inmates nor staff are ordinarily allowed to pet the service dogs in training. Joining me now, an attorney representing 11
not
of
for nothing,
Epstein's
dude. Like
victims,
that's
Eric
even in a
Valley.
way. Like I get like what they're saying at face value is like they're like making that like it's a big deal, but in reality, it's like, why the fuck are we even talking about that she has like a puppy in her room?
I'll tell you why. Because if you're an inmate in the cell next to her and they let her play and pet that dog and they let you barely look at it, you're fucking pissed off.
I don't even imagine that she's in an environment like you've just suggested, where it's like a cell next to a cell. Like I already immediately believe that she's already in Club Fed, which probably somehow looks like Mar-a-Lago. So at that point,
It's
like
bedrooms.
right, like exactly, it just looks like a mansion regardless. So the fact that we're discussing that a puppy visits is kind of like discounting from the bigger picture.
I think it's just sand in the eye. You know?
Yes,
Like,
it is.
For the victims, it's
right.
like, are you fucking kidding?
As if she's in a holding block and she's in, like, as if she's in a barred cell.
No, fuck.
And getting a puppy visit, like that's what I'm getting at. Is like they're trying, like I, for all practical purposes, I believe she has fresh cut flowers delivered every day.
Probably. Yep.
You know, like she's living the lap of luxury on so many other levels, but they reduce the conversation and focus it on like she's got it so good. Did you know she has a puppy delivered? And it's like, did you know that there's not a guard in eyesight of her?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you know that she's having chef catered meals delivered by the warden, who's probably banging her out? Like
gluten free.
Yeah, like she orders whatever she
thank
wants.
you for being with us. Wondering if you've spoken to your clients about this and what their reaction is to these reports of this special treatment for Ghislaine Maxwell, including puppy time.
Yeah, I mean, their reaction is it's profoundly devastating. Ghislaine Maxwell does not deserve puppy time. Ghislaine Maxwell does not deserve anything but to be rotting behind bars. She is a convicted child sex trafficker.
But she's not
She was
behind bars. That
convicted
was my whole
at a
point. Like,
court of
there's
appeals,
literally
a
no
court of appeals,
bars in her
court of
view.
appeals in New York, a full trial. She put on a robust defense. She was convicted of tricking 14-year-old girls into having sex and becoming sex.
How much you want to bet she's actually allowed to leave and go do stuff?
Prison where
I would not be surprised at all. I mean, when you look back at Epstein's first actual
yes,
sentence.
Right, where yes, exactly, where his
He was working.
guards were told to remain outside and presume that he's still inside.
Right.
And there's
He
still
was-
young women showing up to the property. I mean,
Yeah.
there's really no limit to the activities that they were previously engaged in post arrest and incarceration. So this is where I get this is what I'm getting at, where it pisses me off, where they're focusing on the puppy time when it's like, well, what else is going on that you're not discussing?
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem silly. Like I said, I think it just has to do with it's just here's mud in your eye kind of a thing.
Yep.
This lady was a fucking sex trafficker of children.
Right.
And she's
right. She was convicted of trafficking human beings, and that there's a clientele list, but we're not going to incarcerate any of the clientele. We're just going to ignore that aspect of this reality.
Exactly. All right, let's see. So let them continue here.
She does not deserve any special treatment, and it's just profoundly devastating, disappointing, and re-victimizing for the victims to have to hear what sort of treatment she's getting.
Well, NBC News also reported on an email in which Maxwell describes being much happier since her transfer to the prison camp. She also is reportedly seeking a commutation from President Trump. Do you think he might reduce her sentence for sex trafficking?
Unfortunately, I can't rule it out. I mean, and that's how absurd this whole situation is. We're constantly hearing about, the two systems of justice in our country: justice for the rich, justice for the poor. Under the Trump administration, there is a third tier of justice, and that is justice for those who are friends with Donald Trump. It has become very clear that there is a different set of laws, there is a different set of justice for anyone who may be friends or someone who may even say nice things for Donald Trump, because we consistently see him pardoning his friends, pardoning people who are nice to him. And if Ghislaine Maxwell is pardoned or has her sentence commuted by Donald Trump, the only possible explanation will be that Donald Trump is pro-sex trafficking, and anyone who supports him after he does that is pro-sex trafficking. There is simply...
Wow, do you look at it that way?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I say it's beyond party lines. There's a level of, and I don't even like the word elitism, as it presupposes they're better than us when they're actually worse than us. I can't think of the right word currently, but there's bad people that are colluding. They pretend to be on different sides of the aisle on so many topics.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to the dirty deeds and the skeletons in the closet, they're one and the same. Right. The party lines is stagecraft to keep the poor people in check. But once you reach a level of affluence and misinformation and managing of narratives, these pedos operate across party lines, and they will do whatever it takes to maintain the integrity of those nefarious circles, regardless of whether they wear, a blue hat or a red hat.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to cut off this stream from YouTube.
I'm going to
Just a second here.
Kill it entirely. I was on YouTube and X, but since I can only kill both at the same time, I am going to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to get you.
So now I am no longer simulcasting you. It's all on you. Speak your truth, Gabe.